Ahoy there, me hearties. This be Captain Silverhook, and you're listening to the Two Old Pirates podcast. Set sail for an open sea of stories, tales, and some really crazy stuff. I expect you to like and subscribe, lest you be walking the plank. Ha ha ha!
Hey, welcome to Podcast 45. It's DeWolf.
It's Vinny.
We're back. It's been a long time, son.
Yeah,
it's been a day. It's been a day.
At least.
Yeah, it's been a while. You might be asking, is there something particularly different about either one of us? Vinny is wearing his trademark glasses. He's got his cola shirt on.
Drink cola.
I don't know. I've got a little bit of a stash and is there anything different?
You're still wearing your Corona mask?
I've got the Corona mask. Yeah, I got... Oh, the hat. The hat.
Yeah, that's right.
The hat. I knew it was something weird.
It was on the tip of my tongue, actually, but it's on the top of your head.
Yes. We're the Two Old Pirates, and we're instituting a green screen, and so we decided that because of the laws of colors, yep, I can't wear my green Celtics hat, so I'm screwed.
Otherwise, the top of his head will disappear. And there's nothing in there anyways.
That's true. It fell out a long time ago. But the thing is, we're back, and we want to go ahead and say we're so sorry that we haven't been able to be here, but there's been a lot of things going on in our lives, and we're just so thankful of the outpouring of people that said, hey, are you guys okay? When are you guys coming back? We really missed you. And so because of that, we're here, and we're going to do a quick podcast over a couple different things, something very, very serious, and another one that just pisses us off.
Yeah.
I guess both would piss us off, probably in some fashion.
In some degree, but one is more understandably irate and pissed off than the other, and the other is more just like first world problems pissed off. Yeah.
So, anyways, let's go ahead and jump into it. I had an argument the other day with my 13-year-old, and I didn't let Vinny know about this at first.
Breaking news!
And what he was telling me, as a person who grew up in the 70s and 80s, I was like, no, son, you're absolutely wrong. That's not true. And he's a 13-year-old, so he has 13-year-old teenage boy hormones who think they know everything. He's like, you're wrong, Dad. And as a father, I could either take that and say, okay, my son's just... Or I could sit there and be me. And so what we were arguing about is, and some of you have never watched any of the Star Wars movies, you don't like science fiction, I understand that. But just try to follow along. Yeah. For those of you that have watched Star Wars,
then you're going to know. But for those of you that don't, imagine whatever your hobby is, whatever your interests are,
favorite movie, sport, anything.
And anything you hold near and dear. And imagine that, but imagine it just as like Star Wars for like the time being. Something you hold close.
And something that's had a distinct part of that story that's always been there.
Yeah.
And for decades, we're not talking about like a year or two or something, for decades, everybody that you know, everybody that's ever been associated, they all think the same. And then your 13-year-old tells you, you guys are all wrong. Millions, hundreds of millions of people are wrong because he's right. And you have to argue your point. Mm-hmm. So Vinny didn't know anything about this, but I told him about it. My 13-year-old said that Boba Fett, the bounty hunter from Empire Strikes Back and also Return of the Jedi, that he's actually alive.
And the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes. That he was actually alive. And he was in The Mandalorian Season 2. And
he was.
I said, no, he's dead. And he's all like,
yes,
no, he survived. And I said, no, that's impossible. I remember I was 12. I went to go see Return of the Jedi. He fell into the Sarlacc pit. And you hear him scream. And that's it. And one of the great minor character enemies of any big time movie had died easily and tragically, but he was gone, and that was 38 years ago. 38 years ago, man. I remember being there as a little kid watching that, and if you talk to anybody who's old enough to go and see that movie or seen it on DVD or anything, everybody knows Boba Fett dies. But what happened was, I'm going to turn over to Vinny here because this really drives him crazy what Disney does. And so what George Lucas did in 83 never happened.
No.
Never happened. Never. So he's not going to go into detail about the universe and stuff. I just want him to, about this one story about Boba Fett and how he was in The Mandalorian because my son was 100% correct. I hate to admit that because I love him more than life, but damn, Dad knew for almost 40 years a certain tale. Everybody knew.
Yeah.
And explain to him what Disney did to all of us.
So Disney pulled the rope-a-dope because they know that Boba Fett means bucks, okay? People love Boba Fett. So they were like, how do we justify Boba Fett coming back in The Mandalorian? Well, as it turns out, officially and canonically now, when he fell into the Sarlacc pit, we
heard him scream like he was dying.
We heard him scream. We heard the screams. But apparently, what we didn't see...
Oh, and what did my son tell me to really piss me off about? We didn't what, though? We didn't see.
We didn't see him die. We just heard the scream.
Imagine a 13-year-old looking at you and do, did you see him die? And I'm like, no, everybody knew. And he's all, but you never saw him die.
That's the justification behind Disney.
You never saw. So Disney thought like a 13-year-old and said...
Yeah, so apparently Boba Fett's jetpack detonates, injuring the monster in the Sarlacc pit enough so that Boba Fett is able to use grenades to blow his way out of the monster's stomach or mouth or whatever.
Yeah.
And escape and survive.
But you never see that in the movie.
And then he just disappears for like 30-some odd years.
He like gets a job at a hotel, like a Best Western on
Tatooine.
Yeah, Tatooine. He's just chilling out with his full, outfit and stuff, and nobody hears about him until they come up with the Mandalorian, and they're like, hey, we should bring him back because a lot of today's kids that weren't born back then have grown up, and we could profit off of that. So they bring him back saying exactly what Vinny said, that his jetpack went off, singeing or burning the Sarlacc monster inside the Sarlacc pit, and then he took off some of his grenades and threw them in, blew up the monster, and just escaped, and nobody saw him anywhere.
As dumb as that sounds, that is the official
and so now he
description.
Can be in future Star Wars things because they brought him back. 2 thumbs down.
Yeah.
And what they did is you have 13-year-old kids like my son doing, Dad, this is amazing. Boba Fett's here and stuff. And
I'm sure there's still people that are your age and older who were fans of Star Wars where it was a big part of their childhood who are giving it 2 thumbs down. Because there are people out there who are upset saying, no, Boba Fett died.
Well,
he's dead.
I'm almost positive there's people that are my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, that saw the original Star Wars trilogy that aren't really into The Mandalorian. That if you go up to ask them, just say, that Boba Fett's alive and he's in The Mandalorian, they'd be like, no, he died way back then. Because they stopped following it. They didn't really follow The Force Awakens and Attack of the Clones. They didn't follow that stuff because they're like, I got older, I didn't like that stuff. But if you brought back their childhood and brought that up, they're going to say, yeah, Boba Fett died. And they're not going to know, no, he's there. And Disney's cha-ching making money off of him.
Yeah.
Now, the second thing is, I told Vinny about this today. And he's like, no, you got to be, come on, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's real. The second thing my 13-year-old told me, which after the first one, I was like, maybe I should believe this kid more. If you remember in The Phantom Menace, they really built it up over the course of a year that there was this evil Sith Lord named Darth Maul with the horns and the red painted face. He looked devilish and stuff. And we all know what happens to him.
He gets cut in half.
He's literally cut in half and falls down.
He falls down a chute in the ship.
And you see him, fall. So this is what happened, my son tells me. And we looked it up, and it's true. Darth Maul did not die. Evidently, he fell to the bottom of this pit after being literally cut in half with a lightsaber. And he fell to the bottom, and he lived off the blood and remains of the rats that lived at the bottom of it. And now he's going to be coming back because the actor who played him, we just found out, already posted a picture of himself on Instagram teasing that Darth Maul will be back in 2022. So, not only did you... Now, see, my son had me with Boba Fett. We didn't see him die.
Yeah.
So I can see how Disney can maybe squeeze a little bit out of that. But when you see him, man,
we saw him get cut in half.
When you see Darth Maul literally cut in half and dumped in a, you don't even see him land. He's falling
He's just
so
falling
far.
forever.
And he'll be back. He'll be back.
He's
Disney
back.
has decided we can figure out ways that he ate rats to survive.
You just keep knocking him out of the park, Disney.
5 years, they say, he was at that bottom of the pit just eating off of rats. Don't know how the rats got there, but...
I tell you the worst thing that Disney's done with the Star Wars universe. This was way back when George Lucas originally signed the contract to sign over Star Wars. Mm-hmm. The first thing Disney did is they immediately retconned all of the expanded universe.
So what you might not know what Vinny's talking about right now is I was not even aware that they had done this. So what he's explaining was news to me, that everything that we know outside of the movies about Star Wars.
Yeah, they had
gone.
tons. They
It's
had
gone.
tons of side stories.
There's novels and all these other
novels,
things.
books, you name it.
All of that is in the trash
Yeah.
heap of history now, because when Disney bought it, they got exclusive rights, and they said that is all dead.
They said just
All
the movies.
The movies are the only
yeah.
thing that you can go by now.
Movies is what's canon, so that they could build upon that. So like Eric was saying, all the novels, all the books, all the comics, all the video games, of which there's hundreds. There's a huge expanded universe that builds upon the lore that the original trilogy and movies was even the second trilogy, 1 through 3. That's all just been.
Yep.
That's it. That's it. It doesn't count anymore. And that, I'm not even a huge fan of Star Wars, but to do that, that's really just twisting the knife with fans of the series to say, I mean, you can still go and read those books all you want, but they're not a part of the universe anymore. They're not.
So you're never going to see them interpreted in
yeah,
film,
exactly.
because
It's
they
all
never
fantasy.
exist. Because it's just like an offshoot that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like these people, these authors, illustrators, artists, they work so hard on their craft to go ahead and do all these things over decades. And when Disney bought it, they said, "Oh, all that stuff you guys did, sure, you made money off it and stuff, but it'll never, ever, ever be used in our universe.
It's non-canon.
We're going to start spinning off what we want to spin off." Yeah. So in a way,
the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, it's just a money grab, and it's sad. So yeah, we got the Boba Fett and the Darth Maul; those are two for sure. But we also want to talk to you about because George Lucas is not innocent in this.
Yeah, no.
Okay, those first 3 movies that he did are still some of the best movies you can see when it comes to science fiction or family entertainment stuff. And then somehow George decided, hey, I got something really good. I'm going to kick it in the nuts real hard. Because
it's all part of my original vision.
There's no reason for what he did when he re-released them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let Vinny tell you about what he did here, because I remember, if you still have any of the old VHS copies of the original movies, those are worth hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, because that's what people saw in the theaters. And that's the way it was supposed to be. And then Lucas came along and said, hey, there's CGI now, and there's more ways to navigate the computer imagery and stuff. So I'm going to do this. So what did he do on the re-release when they re-released it back in, I think, 97? They released each of the first 3 films.
Well, this wouldn't have been 97. I think the first thing he started doing was he changed the destruction of the Death Star.
Right.
Was one of the first big changes. And then, because there's been multiple re-releases of the series, with little things being changed in each one. There's an entire Wikipedia page devoted just to changes that have been made, release to release, of the Star Wars franchise.
He just kept messing with it.
The most notorious thing that he did was he digitally added, after Episode 1, in another future reissue of the original trilogy, he digitally added Jar Jar Binks into one of the original trilogy movies.
Well, if you remember, there were scenes that were shot that he never used because he didn't have somebody to play Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
Jabba the Hutt was supposed to be a man originally. He was not supposed to be this big sloth-looking, fat, just gross thing. He was supposed to be a man, and that's who Han Solo owed the money to. So if you ever watch the re-release of the original Star Wars A New Hope, there's new scenes in there where they're at the Millennium Falcon, where he's all, Han, I have always trusted you, boy. What he did is, after he decided to go with Jabba the Hutt and Return of the Jedi as this big slug fat thing, he knew he couldn't go back and make him a man again. So that's why when he did the re-release, like in the 90s, he digitally altered the film that he had that was never put in the original film, where they're at the Millennium Falcon talking and Han Solo. And if you watch, it's really shitty how they did it.
Yeah.
You know, they have them walking next to each other, and you see Harrison Ford as Han Solo say, "Hey, look, Jabba," and he's not even like looking at Jabba because there was nobody there. There was no actor or anything because they didn't have green screen or anything like that back then. So what happened is he's literally just pointing his finger, talking in the air, saying, "Look, Jabba, I didn't mean to dump that stuff, but I had to because they were on my case." And he's all, you know, Han, I understand, you're my guy. All that shit was added later in, and you see the video where he's walking around Jabba the Hutt and it just looks all choppy and cut. And I'm all like, even in today's technology, it was
composited really weird.
So yeah, he came back and did all these things. He's like, hey, I have all this stuff that was on the cutting room floor. I can put it back in. Jar Jar Binks.
Misa's so happy the Death Star explode.
Out of any character in the entire Star Wars universe, he is probably the most hated.
They really tried making him a thing to get kids to like Star Wars.
We started hating the Ewoks after a while because we were like, dude, how did an entire empire fall to these small little bears using prehistoric weapons? They got AT-ATs and they've got all these other things, and they're like, oh no, a boulder, a piece of wood, I can't fight this. And I remember being 12 watching that movie doing. Is the Empire? Are they all special? They're the worst shots. It's an ongoing joke about stormtroopers. Pew, 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 pew. They can't shoot anybody, and but you got along with that. But dude, when you see Ewoks like 3 foot tall, little bitty, furry, horny things, remember they wanted that Princess Leia. They were like hitting on Princess Leia. But anyways, to make a long story short, Jar Jar was added in, like how Vinny said, because they thought, hey, this will grab the attention of kids.
Yeah. But it was added in also to make everything more, to bring in, because by now, the second trilogy of 1 through 3 had been made. So this was taking things from those, what should have been, in George Lucas's eyes, in 4, 5, and 6. He was taking things from the original trilogy and bringing them into 4, 5, and 6 to make the experience complete. As all part of my original vision, like I said a second ago in that stupid voice. So when he says it's all part of his original vision, that's him taking from episodes 1, 2, and 3 and just kind of sprinkling it into 4, 5, and 6. So really, as Eric said, those original VHS tapes are worth a considerable amount of money, but the laser discs of the original trilogy, before any alterations were made, like, people say that's the optimal way to watch.
Well, I'm sure because VHS is going to break down over time.
And so does Laserdisc, but Laserdisc holds up a little bit better because it's basically just a big CD, essentially.
So if anybody out there, if your parents bought old VHS tapes and they've been sitting in the garage or in the attic or something like that, and you remember seeing an old Star Wars one late 90s,
could be worth a few
you
bucks.
guys go out there and find it, and it's in good condition with the thing. You could easily find a small treasure.
But let me ask you something. Out of
That's
all the
coming
things,
from a pirate to you.
Out of all the things that George Lucas kept messing with, let me ask you something. Who shot first?
Okay, here's the deal.
Who shot first?
If you don't know what Vinny's talking about, in the cantina scene where Han Solo's sitting there and Greedo comes down to talk to him and says Jabba the Hutt sent him to go get him and stuff because he owed money, and they have their little talk. In the original movie that I went to go see when I was 6, Han just kills Greedo. He just shoots him, just kills him.
He blows him away.
His hair's sticking up like zzz, like that. And he goes over and flips a coin to the bartender and says, "Sorry for the mess," or whatever like that. That was it. And then so many people fell in love with Han Solo as a character that George Lucas decided he had to digitally fix this so people wouldn't think he was exactly what he was. He was a space pirate. And if we know anything about pirates in the old days, like my son says, they were horrible people. Rape, pillage, burned down villages and stuff like that. So because he's a space pirate, he's supposed to be just swashbuckling, handsome guy? No, he's a piece of crap too. So, what did he eventually do?
Well, in the 1997 reissues, they make Greedo shoot first, so that Han shoots in self-defense or as a response to being shot at. And they have the thing where his headlight, he dodges the bullet, and that's also composited really weird.
Yes.
Where because he doesn't, that shot was never made. Him dodging the laser blast was never something they filmed. So they made Greedo shoot first.
Yeah, so in that one, it's almost instantaneously. You have Greedo, choo-choo, you see your 2 shots. So Greedo shoots, and Han Solo is so fast he shoots him underneath the table, which is the original shot of underneath the table, which is kind of underhanded.
Yeah.
Didn't even let the guy have a chance. And that way people said, see, Han wasn't a bad guy. He was a split second away after he was shot at. And then like how he said, they digitally moved him a little bit in the thing to make it look like he had the Matrix going on or something. He dips out of Greedo's laser gun shooting him, and then he gets his fire off. And then what happened?
And then in the 2000s, with another DVD release, they make it so that they shoot at the same time.
So then they're like, they want to give Greedo some respect back, saying, hey, maybe Han was a little bit of a piece of crap, and they just had the same clairvoyancy or something to shoot at each other at the same time.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
As of Disney Plus, the release is in 4K on Disney Plus. Greedo shoots first.
So we start with Han killed him in just cold blood, to Han was defending himself a snap second after being shot at, to they were both going to kill each other, to it was just all Greedo.
Yeah.
So it's, we're talking 1977 to 2021. You have this huge long period of time where they've changed the story 4 times. They've had 4 different stories. So if you have the original VHS like we talked about, and you have the original shot of Han killing him and stuff, that's the reason why those original things are worth so much. Not just because they're the first ones, but because it also tells a tale from the original way before all these different edits were thrown in to different movies. And they've all been re-edited and fixed in some. They just keep messing with, like I said, this soup instead of just staying with what you got. But they kept messing with it.
The good news is there's enough Star Wars, I guess, purists out there that you can go online and there's communities of people who would be more than happy to direct you into releases, home video releases that you can probably look for on eBay or something like that, where you can buy it and you can experience the movies, the trilogy, their original way, and not with any subversive edits or any CG added in, no recompositing, none of that. So there's plenty of people who are passionate enough about Star Wars, and this is just one example. There's plenty of people who are passionate enough about this that they're willing to say, okay, if you want the original experience, you need to buy this one on VHS or maybe Laserdisc or whatever. It depends on what your budget is. And they say the one on Disney Plus, the blah 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 blah, and
the thing is, for kids nowadays that are growing up, if their parents aren't really fans of the Star Wars history or anything like that, and they have Disney Plus, and they're like, oh yeah, all the Star Wars movies are on there. Those kids are going to grow up seeing something that I never saw,
it's a totally different story than what we saw.
And so, I mean, at one point in time, it was the biggest movie in the history of the film industry. So the thing is, we're not talking about.
It was the movie everyone wanted to be.
It was the number one movie in the history of cinema, and it was a social thing. I mean, people went and saw it 10, 15 times back in the 70s and in the 80s, and then, C-3PO and R2-D2 became famous. So, I mean, these things are just part of Americana. It's not. It's almost like hot dog and baseball and apple pie. So
it's all orchestrated, and you fell for it. Okay? I'm just going to say it. You fell for it.
So, for Podcast 45, please subscribe if you have not already subscribed. We were so close to 500. We're going to have a special August 28th live edition, and we're going to announce that we've made the 500. And we're going to go ahead and give out special gifts to some of our listeners and anybody who's on the Pirates, Two Old Pirates on Facebook. If you join that, we're around 500 people on there. We want to get to 500 subscribers on YouTube. We need to get that. All right?
Yeah. We can make it there.
So if you have any questions, concerns, let us know. Remember, like, subscribe, share. We are happy to be back. We're thrilled for this next adventure.
Yeah. Next chapter of the Two Old Pirates.
So you'll be seeing a lot more of this hat instead of the old Celtics hat, but it's still the same, Eric.
Still the same, Vinny.
Take it easy, Two Old Pirates.
Peace.